Alright guys, this is the video for the Cycle 1 walkthrough. That means that we're going to be going over frequency tables, histograms, and box and whisker plots. So we have 10 questions today that we're going to go over. You can do this a couple of ways. First, you could listen through the video and go ahead and just copy down what I'm walking through and what I'm saying, and you can use this as additional notes. The second option that you could do is you could go through, try the problem on your own, and then listen to the correct explanation. Or the third thing you can do is you can go ahead and try it yourself completely through. So do all 10 questions and then go back and check your work. Either way, whichever way you choose, this is a great resource so that you can see if you are doing the steps correctly. So if we look at number 1, runs per game, it asks us to use the data to make a frequency table. When we make a frequency table, we have 3 steps. The first step is to order the numbers from least to greatest. So in example 1 here, we are going to have 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 9. So we ordered our data values from least to greatest. Then the second step is to see if there is a given interval, maybe an interval of 2, an interval of 3, that is usually given in the problem. If we look up here, we do not have any specifications on what the interval is, so I just chose an interval of 2. So now we have the intervals, so we have the tally, and we have the frequency. So if we go through, I have the interval from 0 to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, 8 to 9. And if we look here for the tallies, from 0 to 1, we have 3, 2 to 3, we have 4, 4 to 5, we also have 4, 6 to 7, we have 3, and 8 to 9, we have 1. So our frequency table here shows the interval, then the tally and the frequency sometimes go together. I just like to show the step in between of how we got the numbers. So remember how we got them is if we look here for 0 and 1, we cross off 1, 2, 3, so that's why it's 3. Then for 2 to 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how we get 4. 4 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, again that's how we get 4. 6 to 7, 1, 2, 3, and last but not least we have 9, which is 1. So again, our steps. Step number 1, order the numbers from least to greatest. Step number 2, see if there is a given interval. If not, choose one that represents the data effectively. And then step number 3, create the frequency table. It is optional whether you include the tally column or not. So go ahead, if I were you, I would pause this video and then try number 2 on your own. So if we go here to number 2, the first step that we need to do is we need to write our values from least to greatest. So we're going to have 6, 8, 8, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 15, 17, and 21. Then we're going to do the same steps that we did in question number 1, where we have the interval, and the frequency. The intervals, again, I chose to do 3 this time. So 6 through 8, 9 through 11, 12 through 14, 15 through 17, scoot this up a little here, 18 through 20, and last but not least, we have 21 through 23. I know I had to squeeze that one in there. My spacing was not very good on this. So for 6 to 8, we have 6, there's no 7s, and then 8. So that's 3. That means 3 there. For 9 through 11, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 12 through 14. 12 through 14, if we look at that, we have 1, 2, 3. 15 through 17, we have 2. 18 through 20, we don't have any. And then 21 through 23, we have 1 at 21. So the frequency table here, these are my frequencies for these specific intervals. If we look here at number 3, we are now using the data below to make a histogram. Making a histogram takes it one step further, and it's a visual representation of the frequency table. So when we go through, we're going to create the frequency table first, and then we are going to create the histogram. So if I look here and I set up my frequency table, I'm going to have the interval, the tallies, and the frequency. So in this one, since the intervals go, well, my values go for 514 to 311, I found my maximum and my minimum. I'm trying to see the range of the data. So if I look here, my range is 203. I think that about 4 intervals would be good, so breaking it into 4. So that means I'm going to divide by 4, and I get approximately 51 because it's equal to 50.75. So I round it up to 1. So each interval is going to have 51 in it. So the intervals that I've selected now are 311 to 362, and then 363 to 414, 415 to 466, and 467 to 518. So those are my intervals. So now we go through the list and we put our tallies in there. So for 311 to 362, we have 2 of those values. So my frequency is 2. For 363 to 414, we have 7. 415 to 466 is 2. and 467 to 518 is 1. Now, you might ask, what if I decided to choose a different number of intervals there? That's okay. It's up to you. When it's not stated, you have to pick an interval and the amount of intervals that seem appropriate. So I chose 4. If you chose 3, you would do the same steps, only you would replace this 4 for a 3. Same thing if you wanted to do 5, etc. It does not matter as long as you specify what you are doing. So now we're going to draw the histogram. So here is my graph. And again, this is the number of pages. Up here on the vertical axis, we have our frequency. We need to go up 7 because that's our frequency. And then on our x-axis, we need to put our intervals there. And we have 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are our frequencies and our intervals. So the first interval, remember, was 311 to 362. Then we had 363 to 414, 415 to 466, and lastly 467 to 518. So as you can see here, we have 2 for between 311 and 362, 7 for 363 to 414, 2 from 415 to 466, and 1 from 467 to 518. So remember, your histograms are just some fancy bar graphs that you continue on and make sure that they are touching. And the bar graph has intervals as opposed to individual data points. Now in question 4, we're going to do similar what we had for question 3. So go ahead, take a moment, and complete question 4 for me. So for question 4, we have the amount of snowfall. So remember, the first thing that you want to do is you want to order this from greatest to smallest or from smallest to greatest. It really doesn't matter as long as they are sequential, okay? I'm not going to take the time to really explain how I got it, but here are the values from smallest to largest, okay? We have 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.25, 4.5, 5, 6, 6.5, 8, 8.5, another 8.5, 9, 10, 10.5, and 12. Let's make that one look a little bit more like an 8. All right, so there's all of our data points. If we look here, it wants us to use intervals of 2. So that means on our chart here, we have the intervals, and we have our frequency. It wants us to use intervals of 2. So our first data point is 0.5. So I'm going to have 0.5 to 2.5, and then 2.51 to 4.51, 4.52 to 6.52, 6.53, to 8.53. Then if we keep on going, continuing from there, well, you'd have 8.54 to 10.54, 10.55 to 12.55. And then we need to go ahead and fill in our frequency table. So if we look, we have 5, and then 3, 3, 3, 3, 1. So when we go through, make our frequency table, we have 5 different intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 6 intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. And our frequency, the highest it goes up to is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember, this is our frequency. And this down here is the range of our intervals. So we're going to fill those in. 0.5 to 2.5, 2.51 to 4.51, 4.52 to 6.52, 6.53 to 8.53, 8.54 to 10.54, and 10.55 to 12.55. And again, we're using frequency and we're to make our histogram. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's 4, not 3. Let's erase that mark here. So 3, so 1, 2, 3. And then 3. And then 3. And then one more 3. And then 1. So 1, 3, 3, 3, and 3. So this is the histogram for the snowfall in inches. Vertical lines. For 5 through 8, this is a little bit of review for finding the minimum, the maximum, the median, and then the new ones that we found today, which is the first quartile and the third quartile. So if we look here, the step is always to put our answers and our data from smallest to biggest. So I'm going to have 150, 180. Let's work this out. So 150, 180, 200, 220, 300, 320, and 330. So our minimum and our maximum are the easiest to find here. The minimum's the smallest number, so that's 150. The maximum is the largest number, and that's 330. So now the median is that middle number, what we use when we cross off the lowest and the highest. So if we take one off this side and one off this side, work our way towards the middle, this 220 is our median because that's the middle value. Now, to find the first quartile, we look at this range of data right here. So if we look at that range of data, we're going to do the same steps that we had been doing before, where we cross off. The only thing here is we cross out the median because that's officially the middle number. And so now we have 3 different points here to work with. The middle number is 180. So our first quartile is 180. So again, I know I went by that pretty quick. The median, when you have a clear, distinct median, you take that out and you look to what's left of the median. What's left of the median is how you find the first quartile. We found that middle value, which was 180, so that's why our first quartile is 180. We are going to do that same thing over here to what's right of the median. We're going to look for that middle number again, which is 320. So that third quartile value is 320. For number 6, we're doing the same thing. The first thing we need to do is order our data points. So we have 12, 14, 14, 17, 18, 18, 19. And then our minimum is our smallest number, so that's 12. Our maximum is the largest number, so that's 19. To find the median, we cross numbers off from each side, working our way to the middle, and we see that 17 is our median. Because we have a distinct median, we look to the numbers to the left to find our first quartile, and again we cross them off. So 14 is in the middle. It's our median of what's before the median, so of that first quartile range. And then we look to the right, and again cross them off to find what's in the middle. So our third quartile is 18. Go ahead and try number 7 for me now. So for number 7, it's very similar. The only difference is we have some decimals working here. So if we look through, we still need to order them from smallest to biggest. So our numbers are going to be 22.3, 32.2, 33.2, 39, 41.9, 45.1, and 76.7. So again, our minimum is the smallest, so that's 22.3. Our maximum is the largest, so that's 76.7. Those should be easy questions on your guys' quiz on Friday. Now, the median is the middle number. So that middle number, we cross them off again, remember, from both sides. One from the left, one from the right. So our median in this case is 39. We do have a definitive number there. So then we need the first quartile, which is the median of the left, which is 32.2. And the third quartile is the median to the right, which is 45.1. Now over here for number 8, this one gets a little tricky. So let's look over here. I'm going to scoot over to get some more room. So the first thing we need to do is we need to order them from smallest to largest. So we have 4, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 9, and 11. So if we count there, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 data points. So if you notice, the minimum is still going to be the same. We have the minimum, which is 4, and we have the maximum, which is 11. So those two don't change. However, we do have, when we try to find the median, we take it 1 off from the low end, the high, and we work our way towards the middle. But once we get to the middle, instead of having just one data value, we have 2. We have 7 and 8. So in order to find this median, we have to take the average. So we do 7 plus 8 divided by 2, which is 15 divided by 2, which is 7.5. So the median is 7.5. Now, this affects our first and third quartiles as well. So the first quartile now, because there's an even amount, we include that 7 in there. And for the third quartile, we include the 8 because there's not a specific median. So, over here, for the first quartile, if we look, we take off a 4 and a 7. And then we have a 4 and a 5. So now we're going to do the same thing. We need to find the average. So 4 plus 5 divided by 2 is 9 over 2, which is 4.5. So that first quartile is 4.5. Now to find the third quartile, that third quartile, we're going to do the same thing. Cut off the 8 and the 11, and then we have 9 and 9. So when it's the same number, we do not have to find the average, but even if we did that same thing, we'd have 9 plus 9 over 2, which is equal to 18 over 2, which is equal to 9. So the third quartile is 9. So if you have two values that are the same, then the average of those two numbers is still 9. So if you look here, the minimum was 4, the maximum was 11, the median was 7.5, the first quartile was 4.5, and the third quartile was 9. The last two problems just take what we have done in 5 through 8 one step further, and they show it visually, just like we went from a frequency table to a histogram. So if we look here for snack prices, we're going to make a box and whisker plot. However, we need to find the minimum, the maximum, the median, and the first and third quartile ranges between that, okay? So if we look, I am not going to show you guys how I put it in order from least to greatest, and I calculated these. If you have a specific question on how I found the central tendencies, or the minimum, the maximum, the median, the first and third quartiles, please come up and see me. However, I do think that this has gone on long enough, and we have had several practices with your finding the minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, and maximums for each data set. So I'm just going to give you those to you, what you should have gotten. Your minimum is 85 cents. Your first quartile is $1.02. Your median is $1.42. Your third is $2.39, and your maximum is $3.25. Now, when you create a box and whisker plot, coming up with a number line with the correct units is good. So in this one, we had a max of $3.25 and a minimum of 85 cents. So I chose to go by 25 cents or by quarters, and I started at 75. So then it was $1, $1.25, $1.50, $1.75, $2, $2.25, $2.50, $2.75, and 3. Okay? So now I need to use my points. So my minimum is 0.85. That's going to be somewhere here in the middle between 75 and $1. The first quartile is $1.02, so that's going to be right past that line. And then the median was $1.42. The third quartile was $2.39. So again, right in that middle. And then $3.25. So those are my points. So I plot my points first. The box is made up of the first quartile, the median, and the third quartile. So all of our quartiles make up the box. So the first thing I do is I create the line, and then I go ahead and put vertical lines through those points, and I create my box. The whiskers are made up of the minimum and the maximum, and those connect the box to those points there. So this is a box and whisker plot that represents the snack prices for number 9. Go ahead and try number 10. So for number 10, the first thing you need to do again is put them in order from least to greatest, and then find your data points. You should have gotten your minimum was 148. Your median was 149.5. Your maximum is 164. Your first quartile is 148.5. And your third quartile is 160.5. If you have questions about those values, please, again, come up and see me or ask about it tomorrow when we do our mini lecture. Now, if you want to see this number line, I chose to go by 5s this time, so 145, 150, 155, 160, and 165. Now, my minimum was 148. My first quartile was 148.5. My median was 149.5. The third quartile was 160.5. And the maximum was 164. So the 3 center dots, those need vertical lines, and those create my box, my 3 quartiles, and then my whiskers are created through there. So these are my whiskers, and again, to label it, this is the minimum, maximum, third, first, in either second quartile or it's called the median. This wraps up your walkthrough. If you have any questions, please ask about this. Raise your hand, come up and see me, ask a classmate, okay? This is really where you need to practice so that you can be prepared for Friday. This is the end of the walkthrough. Once you have written down everything, please get a signature.